Good afternoon, everybody inside of the Coaching Masters community and inside of Coaching Mastery. So how are we all doing? So yes, if you can see me and hear me, if you're here live, then do let me know that you're in the room. Say hello, introduce yourself, and we will be diving into part 2 of today's podcast episode, which was the 7 habits of highly effective people and what they are. We dived into habit 1 and 2 last week, so we've got the rest of them today. Let me know if you're in the room. Let me know if you're joining me 100% live so I can give you a shout out before we officially dive into today's podcast episode. So we've got Monica Dobruck in the room saying, hey, Liam and TCM. How are you doing, Monica? Good to see you. And I know they say this every time, but it'd be cool to get an updated picture of you and your merch. You've become like the merch queen of TCM, which is why I'm always asking for that, but it's because your pictures are so awesome. So yeah, guys, if you're watching live, just let me know. We've also got the awesome Chris Scott in the room, TCM University student, TCM Power Ranger, Chris Scott. And we've got Claire Starr in the room as well. Chris says afternoon, Claire Starr says hey, hey. So guys, let me know, come on in. And there we go, we've got a few more people coming in. Kerry Boland in the house. Yes, Kerry Boland. TCM University student, TCM Power Ranger, Kerry Boland. Saying hello to everyone. Zainab in the room saying hello to everyone. We've got Michelle Morton saying hello to everyone. Via Das saying hello. Happy sunny Thursday. Sandra Kanowski, TCM Power Ranger, saying good afternoon. Yes, it is a lovely sunny day here in the United Kingdom. I don't know if it is across the whole of the UK, but it certainly is here in London. And so I hope it's lovely and sunny where you are. But yeah, anyway, guys, let's jump into today's podcast episode. It is a follow-on from what we were talking about last week, which of course was the 7 habits of highly effective people. More importantly, what are the 7 habits of highly effective people? So let me just say hello to a couple of other people that are joining us. And then we're going to jump into today's episode. So who else is in the room with us? Like I mentioned, if you're watching this live, let me know so I can say hello to you. Monica says, I'm good, thank you. Took a break from paperwork. And yes, I will do it, of course. Legend. I love that, Monica. Awesome, guys. Let's jump in because there's a lot of content to cover today. And we've got less than an hour, so I'm just going to jump into it. So part 2 of this podcast episode. Last week, we were talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people. And more importantly, we were just asking the question, what are they? What are the 7 habits? Because as I'm sure you've guessed, there are 7 of them. And they're incredibly vast. They're incredibly deep. They're incredibly detailed. You know, there is a reason as to why it's one of the biggest self-development books and one of the most successful self-development books throughout history. Stephen Covey, some people call him Stephen Covey, some people call him Stephen Covey. I think it's Covey. That's what I've heard more times than not. But anyway, Stephen Covey, the author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, clearly a very effective person himself, very successful author, very successful coach. And there is a reason as to why it's one of the most successful personal development books in history and one of the biggest. And that is because the detail in which it goes into is very great. So me trying to condense those down into 2 hours is a challenge. And we experienced that last week because we only managed to talk about 2 of the habits. Now, I'm not going to re-go over them because I expect everybody to listen to that podcast episode and therefore we don't need to take up too much time. But just a quick reminder, we spoke about habit number 1, which is about being proactive, therefore deciding what it is we think and therefore deciding what actions we take in the face of an event. And also beginning with the end in mind, which is just being very, very clear on where it is we're going and therefore understanding what we need to do in order to get there, right? Now, the 3rd habit, let's dive straight into it. The 3rd habit is what is known as putting first things first. Now, what does that actually mean to put first things first? Well, in order to understand this habit, we need to understand the first 2, which we do in great detail now. But I really want to just sort of emphasize the fact that what habit number one really does is it encourages you to realize that you are in control of your own life. That's what habit number 1 really provides us with. That is the biggest benefit of habit number 1, really having the true deep insight and realization that we are fully in control of our lives because we are in control of how we react to external stimulus, right? That's what habit number one is all about. Habit number two is based on the ability to visualize and identify our key values, right? That's the most important part, is really understanding that we have this ability to visualize. And I think that we take that for granted on such a deep level because it's a part of everyday life. And because it's a part of everyday life, it's kind of seeped its way into the norm, right? And it's become normal. But in fact, it is an unbelievably valuable asset that we've got to be able to deeply visualize what it is that we want, right? And if we can visualize what we want, then we can start to create a plan. We can start to work backwards and we can really start to understand what needs to happen in order to be able to get what we want. And that would be very difficult to do that without the ability to visualize into the future and visualize a different life and really create an internal representation and an internal image and internal feelings based on what we want, right? So quick recap, habit number one is all about understanding that we are in control. And habit number two is about understanding that we have the ability to visualize what we want and therefore identify the key values in our own lives, right? Habit number three is about the implementation of habits number one and two. So what I mean by that is habit number three is all about now taking action. Properly taking action and taking the first step required to be able to get what we want, right? It focuses on the practice of efficient and effective self-management through independent will. What does that mean? That means that essentially habit number three really allows us to start to move forward and implement what needs to be implemented in order to be able to achieve what it is we want when we want it. That can sound very overwhelming. It can sound very scary. It can sound like a big job. And that is why habit number three is putting first things first. It's the understanding that if we want to take huge, massive action and change huge elements of our lives over the long term, we have to do so with the first single step. The saying, I can't remember what the exact saying is, but you know that classic saying of the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. It's something along those lines. I can't remember it verbatim and I can't remember it exactly, but someone Google that and find it for me because there's so much knowledge and so much wisdom inside of that. And that very much is directly linked to that third habit, right? Starting with first things first. It's very much about the understanding that the journey of 1,000 miles does start with a single step. Therefore, what is that step? What is it? And when am I going to take it? Preferably immediately, right? Now, Stephen Covey, he talks about and refers to a couple of very key questions when it comes to habit number one. And one of those key questions is, what one thing could you do regularly that you aren't currently doing that would improve your personal life, right? So I just want to repeat that one more time. What one thing could you do regularly that you aren't currently doing that would improve your personal life? The reason as to why that question is so important, and I want everybody to write that question down. I'm going to say it one more time. Write it down. What one thing could you do regularly? Okay. What one thing could you do regularly that you aren't currently doing, right? That you aren't currently doing that would improve your personal life. The reason as to why that one question is very, very powerful is because what it does is it indicates to us what is the one first most important thing that we can do to create change in the direction in which we want to create change that we aren't currently doing. Why that is also very important is because a lot of the time, what people will do is they will fall into the trap of a huge inaccurate generalization and say, I've tried everything. Let me know in the comments if you have fallen into that trap before. I certainly have, no doubt. Let me know in the comments, have you fallen into the trap of saying, I've tried everything. There's nothing else that I can do because there's nothing that I haven't tried in order to get that result. And that is the power behind that one question of what one thing could you do regularly that you aren't currently doing that would improve your personal life? Because it's in that one little line, which is that you aren't currently doing. or you have never done before, or you have never tried. That's where the wisdom of that is, because it indicates to us, what have I not yet done? What have I not yet tried that I need to now try in order to get one step closer towards what I want to create? Another question, the second question that Stephen talks about is, what one thing could you do to improve your business or personal life? It's a much simpler question, and it's a lot more direct, but it really does go to the heart of habit number 3, which is to put first things first. What one thing could you do to improve your business or personal life? The reason why he's saying things like business and personal life is because he's trying to be as general as possible so that those questions can relate to everybody. Because when you say business life or personal life, everybody is going to have their own internal representation of what that means to them. And therefore, he has been vague enough to be able to relate to people, but not specific enough that he alienates others, right? So I'm going to say that one more time because it's actually a very, very important part of NLP and language work. He has specifically and intentionally been vague enough for this to apply to everyone, but he has not been so specific that he alienates certain individuals. So by him saying, what one thing could you do to improve your business? There are people that have a business, and there are also people that have full-time employment, and there are also people that would be unemployed that could all relate to that, because they would think, well, what business means to me is either the job hunt or building a business or being at work. And he also says, or personal life. And obviously personal life, when someone says, if I was to ask any one of you, tell me about your personal life, you would all give me a completely different answer, but you would all understand that question. It's actually a really very, very smart thing. So anyway, the power in that question really comes from the words one thing, right? One thing. The reason as to why that's the power behind the question is because what Stephen is trying to get everybody to do is he's trying to get everybody to pay attention to the first thing. Now let's remind ourselves of what habit number 3 is. Put first things first, i.e., take that single step. Take that very first immediate bit of action. Regardless of how small that step is, it's the first step. And that is very, very important, okay? Regardless of how small the step is, it will still get you one step closer towards what it is you want to create, okay? It will get you one step closer towards that. First step is really very, very important. Again, where people fall into a huge trap is that they think that they need to do everything at once, right? They feel like, okay, I see where the end destination is, and therefore I need to be there immediately. So anyway, what happens is that overwhelm sets in a huge, horrible, dramatic way, because we see where we want to go. We see the destination in which we want to reach, but also naturally we see all of the steps required in order to get us there. And the second that we see the whole journey and we see all of the steps required in order to get us to where we want to go, then we don't take any action. And the reason we don't take any action is because it feels like it's too much to bite off. It feels like it's too much to handle. It's too much of a heavy weight. It's too overwhelming. We can't do all of that stuff at once. And therefore, we don't do any of it. So anyway, it's actually, habit number 3 is a very, very simple habit in many respects. It's just about identifying what is the very, very first step. The very first step that I need to take in order to get me closer to where I want to be. What is that first step? And take it. That's it. Don't worry about step number 2. Don't worry about step number 3, 4, 5, 6, or step number 1000. Don't worry about the huge big picture, because we've already addressed that in habit number 2. Now that we are clear on what the big picture is and what the big vision is, now we only need to worry about the very first step, right? So anyway, let's move on to habit number 4. I feel like habit number 3 is in so many respects self-explanatory, simple, but it really needs to be emphasized, because without exercising habit number 3, that is where people completely stop in their tracks. They don't take any action. They don't move forward in the face of overwhelm, because they're looking at the 1,000-mile journey. They're not looking at the single step that you need to take first on that 1,000-mile journey. It's all about starting with the single step. Once you've taken step number 1, then you can take step number 2. Once you've taken step number 2, then you can take step number 3. All of a sudden, before you know it, you're at step 100, and none of that could have ever happened if you didn't take step number 1. So start with first things first. One very last thing to mention about habit number 3 is by asking yourself those questions that I just listed them, you become aware that you have the power to significantly change your life in the present moment. You don't have to wait until the future in order to change your life, right? And I'll give you a great example about this. If you want to go to the gym and you want to exercise and you want to change your body, one of the things that really stops people from doing that is the idea that their body won't change for months, right? I'm going to have to exercise regularly for months without there being any change whatsoever. And I'm only going to be able to benefit from those changes in the future. Personally, one of the things that has allowed me to go and exercise on a regular basis is, in my own head, I think that's complete bullshit. In my mind, every single time you go to the gym, you look and feel slightly better, right? Every time. None of this bullshit about I'm not going to feel the effects of it until 10 weeks or 10 months have passed. I'm not going to be able to see any difference because I'm not going to be able to change at all. I get it into my head that I think every single time I go, right? I may not be able to see it from the naked eye, but every single time I go, I look a little bit better and I feel a little bit better. And therefore, I want to go the next time because I know the next time I'll feel a little bit better. I remember there's a classic line from Only Fools and Horses, which is like a British sitcom. I know we have a lot of listeners from around the world who just won't know this reference whatsoever. But all of you listeners from the UK, you'll of course know Only Fools and Horses and Del Boy. It's just naturally one of the most significant British sitcoms in history. I think it's the first thing he ever says in episode 1, right? I believe anyway. And he's looking in the mirror and he's brushing his hair and he says, I get better looking every day. I can't wait until tomorrow. And what he's saying there is, I get better looking every day. Therefore, I can't wait until tomorrow because I'm going to be even better looking. And then I can't wait until the next day because I'm going to be better looking. You know what I mean? So that is just such a fantastic line. I get better looking every day. I can't wait until tomorrow. Now, think about that in terms of your progress. Every time that you have something that you want to do, think every time I take one step, I get closer towards what it is I want to achieve. I can't wait until I take that first step. And then when I've taken it, I can't wait until I take the next step. Anyway, I won't spend any more time on habit number 3 because it's important, but it's also relatively simple, right? Okay, so habit number 4. This is something that a lot of people don't do, okay? Now we're really starting, even habits 1, 2, and 3, the reason as to why these are the habits of highly effective people is because these are things that people don't do on a general everyday basis, right? People don't do this stuff, but you will do this stuff, right? You will, because you are listening to this and you're going to take action, right? Habit number 4 is what is known as thinking win-win, okay? Think win-win. Why this is so unbelievably significant is because a lot of the time people think in order for them to win, someone else needs to lose. Why that mindset is very detrimental is because it creates competition. Now, competition isn't always a bad thing, right? Because it can create energy, it can create drive, and it can give us the incentive to be able to go out and put the effort in and do something that's relatively difficult. However, remember what I said at the very beginning of episode 1 about how this is always moving away from being a dependent to being independent to being interdependent, right? And interdependent is where you have absolute dependence, yet you also understand that you can get further in life when you are able to lean on each other and work together as a team. This is habit number 4 is where we really start to see the benefits of that interdependent nature, right? Think win-win. Now, the reason why I say it moves us away from competition is because it moves us towards collaboration, right? I want you to write something down right now because this will be something that I can absolutely guarantee will change your life completely if you fully embrace it and fully absorb it. Collaboration over competition, okay? Another way of saying it is cooperation over competition, but cooperation has a few different, connotations to it. Collaboration, I think, is the most powerful. Collaboration over competition. Now, essentially, what we mean when it comes to habit number 4, think win-win, have it in your mind that the best way for you to win is to also help someone else win, and then in turn, they can help you win. This is why teams will always be far more powerful when they work together compared to individuals, right? This is where teams that don't work together, when there's one person who wants to be better than everybody else and there's one person who leaves their team behind, that team will never work, right? But if you get a team that is cohesive, that works together, that is thinking win-win, that understands that there is enough glory for everyone, there is enough reward for everyone, and there is enough winning to go round for everyone, that level of collaboration will always take you further, faster than if you think win-lose. In order for me to win, someone else needs to lose. Collaboration, thinking win-win, will always take you to higher heights compared to if you think you always need to be in competition with everybody else. This is where we're now starting to make that transition away from just independence to interdependence. Now, think about this as a journey. Someone who is completely dependent, right? And they're depending on everybody else outside of themselves, right? They're depending on the world around them to just seamlessly fall into place in order for them to be happy, in order for them to be successful, in order for them to think that life is worth it, right? Once that person starts thinking proactively instead of reactively, right, which is habit number 1, they're going to start moving towards independence. When that person starts to realize that they get to decide what's important to them, what they value, and therefore they can create their future vision and they can begin with the end in mind, which is habit number 2, then they're creating a further form of independence, right? When they then start to take action and they put first things first and they take that first step, they're in full independence mode. That person has now moved away from dependence, where they're depending on other people and the world around them, and they're basically a victim, right? A complete victim of circumstance. They're now moving away from that into the realm of dependence, into the world of independence, right? They're now independent. So it's a huge step in the right direction. But now with habit number 4, by thinking win-win and thinking I'm going to collaborate with other people in order to see all of us win, instead of being in competition with them, we're now making that all-important move from independence to interdependence. Being interdependent on each other by helping each other. That is so unbelievably key. It's such an important trait of a highly effective person. Having the ability to not only stand alone in independence, but actually to be able to link arms with each other into interdependence and therefore get where we want to go faster and more efficiently. So habit number 4 is start to think win-win. If I want to win and I want to achieve something, how can I get someone else to help me do that by me helping them? There's another absolutely phenomenal book that I recommend everybody goes and reads, and it's called The Go-Giver, right? The Go-Giver. Let me know in the comments, have you read the book, The Go-Giver? Okay. And if you haven't, go and read it. Now, I won't ruin it for everyone, but it's very much linked to this idea of habit number 4, which is to think win-win. Now, we all know the term go-getter, right? She's a real go-getter. He's a real go-getter. Ruthless, out there, will win by any means, will be successful under any circumstances, like a real proper go-getter, right? Being a go-giver, right, compared to a go-getter is a lot more powerful. When you're a go-getter, right, of course, we appreciate the drive, we appreciate the energy, we appreciate the desire for success. But what you're inevitably going to do is you're going to get what you want, right? And you're going to get what you feel you need. You're a go-getter, okay? Now, for those people just watching on the podcast and not watching me do this live, it's like I'm reaching in and I'm just grabbing what I want. I'm a go-getter, right? Now, a go-giver is somebody who gives other people what it is they need in order to succeed. And as a result, they get that back in return. Okay, so definitely go and add that book to your list. Like Michaela says in the comments, there is a place under the sun for everyone. And that is absolutely true. A couple of little insights as well from my personal experience and just from being in this world for quite a long time now. One myth that I want to completely bust around the whole idea of thinking win-win is if we look at money, right, as a very specific example, there is way more money in the world than what a lot of people really truly understand. Most people have a lot more money than what they will say, because really when people say I don't have any money, what they're saying is the money that I've got, I have not yet made a decision as to what this is worth spending that money on. But in general, if we just look at the amount of money that is in circulation across the globe, there's enough money across the globe for everybody to be a multi-millionaire a few times over. It's there, it's just not distributed evenly, right? But one of the best ways of getting that distributed to you is to think win-win. And how can I help somebody succeed? And how can I help somebody win? And in turn, I can be interdependent with them and they can also help me win. So when it comes to habit number 4, it's all about just thinking, what can I give in order to build that solid relationship with somebody who also has what I want? And therefore, we can work together and exchange value to each other and therefore get to the top way quicker. Think win-win, not win-lose. Okay, that is the 4th habit. Highly effective people are constantly thinking win-win. How can I support? How can I give? How can I add value? An ineffective person is thinking, how can I take? How can I get what I want? How can I not give any value because I just want it all for myself? That is an ineffective person. And if they scratch and scrape and claw their way to some form of success, that may be possible, but I can promise you they would have been able to have done things way easier and way smoother if they worked together and they exchanged value and it was a win-win scenario. Monica Dobrak in the comments says, great example, Liam, Lewis and Johnny. 100% that is a great example. Now, Johnny could have just focused on doing his own thing. I could have focused on doing mine and Lewis could have focused on doing his. And there's one thing I can absolutely guarantee right now. Due to the other habits, we would have developed some form of success individually. And I can guarantee you it wouldn't have been anywhere close to the level of success that we've managed to create together as a team, being interdependent on each other and wanting to see the other one win and asking the question, what can I do in order to help them win? What can I do in order to help them get what it is I know they want? And the other one is asking the same question in the other direction. And therefore, we build something phenomenal within a short amount of time that we never would have been able to have done alone. We are fully aware of that. As self-proclaimed effective people that follow the 7 habits, that one of them, it really stood out to us in a big way in terms of what we needed to do. Like Lisa Ferry says, everyone has different skill sets. Absolutely. And that's why being interdependent is a very, very, very important thing. Kirsty says, being the best hype men to each other. I love that. And that's very, very important as well. Really celebrating each other and supporting each other and offering help and support and value and asking, how can this be a win-win? So I'm talking from experience on this one. I promise you guys, if you adopt the win-win mindset and you adopt the mindset that collaboration will beat competition every single time. Another good way of thinking about it is build bridges, not walls, right? If you build a bridge, then you connect you where you currently are to another place which previously was unreachable, right? New lands, new worlds, new opportunities. If you build a wall, then all you're doing is encapsulating yourself within this one area in which you're already used to, that has no real element of growth and no element of exploration. And now all it has given you is some form of seclusion, right? Build bridges, not walls. Okay. Build bridges, not walls. Collaborate over competition. That is the 4th habit. The 5th habit, right, is all about communication. Okay. We're now moving into the more sort of intricate details of daily communication with our fellow person. The fifth habit is seek to understand before making yourself understood. Okay. I want everybody to write that down. The fifth habit is seek to understand before making yourself understood. This is almost an intricate skill, right? Out of all of the habits, this is the one that is the most refined. It's the smallest one. It's the most intricate one, but it's very, very important. This is very, 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 very focused upon the idea of I need to really get to understand that person's wants, needs, desires, their viewpoint, their perspective, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, with the understanding that everybody has a completely unique experience in all of those different fields, right? Everyone has a different viewpoint. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different emotion. Everyone filters information in a different way. That's why two people can literally look at the exact same scenario and see two completely different things, because our human experience is based upon all of these intricate filters that we've got inside of our brain. And therefore, what we want to do before we expect someone to understand us and our viewpoint, we seek to understand theirs. This is a key habit of a highly effective person. Now, the reason why this is the most important habits is because once again, it helps us get what we want in the form of interdependence. It doesn't help us get what we want in a solely selfish, secluded, self-focused way, which at times can work. But again, it's a wall that you're building, not a bridge. It's about understanding that we will be able to get what we want in a more focused, efficient way that's more fulfilling because we're interdependent with our fellow person. We are seeking to understand the people around us before expecting to be understood. Ineffective people expect to be understood without making any effort to understand. You will see this all the time now that you know what this habit is, right? The fifth habit of highly effective people, you will see it everywhere. You will constantly see people having the expectation that they need to be seen, they need to be heard, they need to be understood. And their viewpoint is, yeah, but that's my opinion. That's my viewpoint. I'm entitled to it. People should hear it. But as true as that is, there is a seesaw, right? It's a two-way street. At the same time, if that individual isn't making any effort to understand the viewpoint and the perspective and the opinion of the opposite person, then why would there ever be that level of understanding in the other direction? It doesn't make any sense. It's the universal law of balance, right? Everything falls into the universal law of balance. The universe needs to be balanced. The universe, when it is unbalanced, there is unrest. You know, in order to really and truly understand what it feels like to be tense, you need to understand what it feels like to be relaxed. In order to really and truly understand the sensation of freedom, you need to know what it feels like to be trapped, right? There is a universal law of balance. So what we see is we see this imbalance on a constant, consistent basis with ineffective people. And the imbalances is the expectation to be understood without any effort being made to understand. So effective people, they follow the fifth habit, which is to first understand and then in exchange be understood, right? Please do that, really. And I'll tell you what as well, it can in so many respects be a tough pill to swallow sometimes. It really can feel like a tough pill to swallow. And again, I won't go into this in too much detail because this is a completely different podcast episode on its own. But for those people that have studied NLP under me, you will understand about the three main brain filters, right? Of deletion, distortion, and generalization. Understanding that we generalize in order to save time, right? That's what generalization is all about. Our brain thinks it's doing us this massive favor because we're generalizing people, places, things, and events based on very limited experience in order to save time. But it can get pretty dangerous when you start generalizing about people, places, religion, sexuality, all of these things that people generalize about. But with this is also indication of a time saver, right? Our brain is trying to save us time because our brain wants to be understood. And therefore, it feels like the most effective way to be understood is to blatantly ask for that, right? I expect to be understood. I want to be understood. It must be instant. But what's completely missing from that is the universal law of balance, where we must also seek to understand in order to be understood. So anyway, once again, it's a pretty simple habit, really, but it's one of those ones that can be a little bit of a tough pill to swallow because our brain is driving us forward and saying, no, I don't understand. Why are they not listening to me? Why are they not understanding me? And we're completely lacking the fact that that is a fucking one-way street that we're trying to create there. But it has to be a two-way street. What you will notice is that people will be a lot more, and they won't even be doing this consciously, right? This will be a completely subconscious thing. You will notice that people will be a lot more willing to understand you when you have been the one that has made the effort to understand them first. And one of the other more significant reasons is because that's what leaders do. And I'm talking real leaders. I'm not talking dictators. I'm talking leaders, like a proper leader, a good leader. A leader will seek to understand first and therefore separate themselves from the crowd because the majority of people don't do that. In doing so, separate themselves as a leader, and then everyone else around them, or most of the people around them, will then seek to understand them because they've made the effort to try to understand the people around them first. That is where real leaders become very influential. And that's where everyday normal people like me can become very influential through that one very simple habit. Much like every other person on earth, I like to be understood. But I'm also fully aware that the best way for me to get what I want, which is to be understood, I must first seek to understand. It's the fifth habit of highly effective people. Please take that one habit very, very, very seriously because it's one of the ones that will completely change the game for you, as they all will. The sixth habit, right? Now, we're kind of in this realm of communication. We're in this realm of other people. Now, you'll notice that there's a pattern forming here, right? Habits 1, 2, and 3 are very much about you, right? It's all about you as an individual. It's all about the way that you're feeling. It's all about the way that you're thinking. It's all about your visualization. It's all about your values. It's all about the action you need to take. And that's done on purpose, right? Habits 1, 2, and 3 are all about you. Habits 4, 5, and 6 are about other people, right? They're about people outside of you, okay? So just to remind you, habits 1, 2, and 3, habit number 1 is be proactive instead of reactive. That's all about how you react. Habit number 2 is about beginning with the end in mind. So it's about understanding what your values are and what your vision for the future is. Habit number 3 is about putting first things first and taking the first step on that journey. It's all about the action you take. Then habit number 4 is about thinking win-win. So how can you think win-win with another person? Habit number 5 is all about seeking to understand another person before you are understood. And habit number 6 is learn to synergize with the people around you. Okay. Now, this is out of all of the 7 habits, sometimes the one that can be a little bit hard to understand, but it's all about unifying you with the other people around you. Synergizing unifies, it not only unifies us as a group and as people, but when you synergize with someone else, you release this great power that people have within themselves. You release the power of people as it's based on the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Has anyone ever heard that term before? Let me know if you've ever heard that term, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, essentially what that means is it means that if we take all of these individual things, those individually will never be as powerful than if they merge together. Now, I'm sure, if we really dug deep into this, there would be some great examples within the world of physics that would prove this point, how certain elements, when joined and combined and synergize, will always be much, much stronger than if those elements were separated, right? There will always be many, many, many examples within the realm of physics that proves that most of the time, synergized elements will create more of a dense mass and will create more strength and therefore velocity, momentum, and power than if they were separated, right? Okay, habit number 6 really emphasizes that we are a part of that. When we synergize with each other, we unleash the true power of what it means to be a human being. This is very much kind of the emphasis of habits number 4 and 5, right? It's really about allowing that synergy to take over and therefore allow us to be part of something that is much bigger and much more powerful than us on our own. Learn to synergize. Learning to synergize in many respects, habit number 6 is almost the result of really emphasizing and letting habits number 4 and 5 become a part of your life. Because when you exercise habit number 4 and you think win-win, right? How can I help that person get what they want? And therefore they'll help me get what I want. And I'll collaborate with them over competition. And I combine that with seeking to understand these people before I ever expect to be understood. And therefore, as a result, I will be understood. It's then about taking that one step further, feeling the synergy and letting the synergy run. Let synergy do its thing. And again, like Monica gave the example earlier, and it's actually a very, very, very key thing. Viades said, I'm on week number 9 of the accreditation and I felt a bit stuck because I wasn't on the right things. This really changed my point of view. Cool. That's really good, Viades. Love that. So again, Monica gave this example earlier and it's a really good example. Me, Johnny and Lewis and the coaching masters are a great example. How much am I always saying, if it wasn't for you guys, I would literally be a man alone in a room with his laptop, right? That's fucking dead true, isn't it? That's the perfect example of how the whole is greater than a sum of its parts. How the whole collaboration and synergy between a group of individuals is way more powerful than any one individual person in that whole. Because look at where the coaching masters are going at the moment, which, by the way, you're all coming with us. You're all very, very early adopters of TCM. We're only 3 years old. We have just very recently officially been valued at $25 million. That's the valuation of our organization and our company based on all different aspects. The revenue that we've created so far, the size of the team, the product line that we've got already, the future of the tech that we're developing, the co-working spaces that we're popping up around the world, the virtual reality, the app, all of it, right? Based on all of that, there is a valuation of $25 million for TCM. However, think about this for a moment. Without you, and I'm talking to each individual person that is inside of this community, without you, what I have got is literally a laptop. And I'm on my own in a room. If that is not a strong indication of how when we synergize together and we come together to create something as one whole, it becomes so much more powerful than if I was ever to try and do something on my own. I couldn't do it on my own because without you, I would literally be on my own, right? There wouldn't be anyone here helping boost that up, right? You guys, each and every one of you are such a significant part of this entire organization that all of a sudden we become whole. And the whole is much more powerful and greater than a sum of its parts. So basically, us together, we become an organization, right? Now, of course, it needed to have been built by me, Lewis, and Johnny. We needed to have built it. We needed to have taken all the risks. We needed to have put in our personal financial investment. We needed to have developed the skill set. We needed to have built the community. And of course, that is a huge element of it, right? We needed to build the thing. But at the same time, we can build it, but if there aren't people inside of it, the thing doesn't work. So what we've done is we've built this structure, right? But it's all of you guys that needed to have filled the structure to make it work, to breathe life into it, and it gives it a valuation of $25 million. The whole is greater than a sum of its parts. I cannot emphasize that enough. So with that being habit number 6, learn to synergize, what that is doing is that is telling us, make it a habit to feel the synergy amongst the people around us to try to create something that is more whole than us as an individual. It's not exactly the same as win-win. It's focused on collaboration over competition, But habit number 4, which is win-win, is very specifically about the idea that you don't need to lose if I win. That's very much specifically about that particular mindset, that type of mindset of I can help you win and therefore I can also win. There's more than enough to go around. When we take that mindset and we really run with it, that's when we can start to collaborate with people. And when we start to collaborate with people, then we create synergy. When we create synergy, we need to learn to let the synergy roll and roll and roll and roll. Now, sometimes there won't be synergy, right? It's also about understanding when there is not synergy, right? For instance, I think a minute ago in the comments, let me try to find it. Rhonda says, I collaborated and was badly burnt. So of resistance, but never look at it as competition, as the coaching industry has taught me that. Now, that is a really important comment that Rhonda made there, because where she said I had collaborated, but was badly burnt, what that would indicate is that habit number 6 wasn't fully there or fully exercised at the time. And obviously Rhonda can fill us in as to whether or not this is accurate or true. But what that would indicate is that the synergy wasn't there. So the intention was there and the want to be able to collaborate and create collaboration over competition. But for whatever reason, the synergy wasn't there and therefore it ended up badly, right? Synergy and learning to synergize is a really interesting one because it is a habit that we need to develop. But then at the same time, there is a lot of intuition that is attached to that habit. Intuition plays a huge part in all of this, right? Have you ever felt someone staring at the back of your head, right? And it's like really difficult to explain how you know that someone is staring at you, but you just know, right? You can't see them out of your peripherals. They're literally standing behind you. And you turn around and you look and there's someone staring at the back of your head, right? So like Rhonda says, synergy wasn't there, but I thought it was initially. She makes a really, really important point there. It's a really important point. And this is where habit number 6, learning to synergize, is one of the most important habits. I tell you one thing, Rhonda, right? I promise you right now, that experience is going to have been one of the most valuable experiences of your life. And even in this immediate moment, if you haven't yet seen the direct positive results of that being burnt, I can guarantee at some point it will be one of the most valuable experiences of your life. Because what it's going to have done is it's going to have been such a strong lesson of what it feels like when you think the synergy is there, but it isn't. That feels very different to when synergy actually exists. So that is going to be a fucking amazing lesson, right? It really, really is. And life is all about those lessons. So habit number 6 is about learning to synergize, i.e. learn what it feels like when synergy genuinely is there and run with it. And in the same aspect, it's equally as important to be able to understand what it feels like when you think synergy is there and it isn't there. And Rhonda is in a really strong position because she felt that. She knows what that feels like. And like she said, I've learned a lot from it and you will continue to learn things from it, even in years to come. So learn to synergize. Learn what it feels like to synergize and work together when the energy is right. Learn what it feels like to collaborate and understand when it isn't the right fit, when it is the right fit. Like Karina says, right? Karina Karen, flow states is a great example of that. Getting into flow state is when you feel the synergy between you and whatever it is you're doing. Habit number 6 is one of the most difficult habits to describe because you've got to feel it. You can't really logically just talk about it. You've got to know what it feels like. You have to grasp it. And if anyone has ever been in flow, right, with something or someone or some place or whatever, you feel it and you can't really explain it, but you feel it. That's what habit number 6 is all about. It's all about understanding that flow state, that synergy, specifically understanding that it's all about having that with another person in order to successfully collaborate. That's where interdependence just takes things to a whole new level, right? We are now interdependent on each other because we're helping each other win. We're seeking to understand each other and boom, we're synergizing. Me, Lewis and Johnny, fucking amazing example of that. Really great example of what can be done when you think win-win, when you seek to understand before being understood and you synergize and you let the synergy roll. So the 7th and final habit, ladies and gentlemen, as we round off, is a very simple habit, a very simple analogy, and it is undoubtedly the thing that people do the least. And it's the thing that will change your life in so many different ways, right? It'll change your life. The seventh habit is known as sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw. I'm going to tell you one very, very simple story that will completely explain this habit in as much detail as what you need. There is a man in the middle of the woods trying to cut down a tree, and he's trying extremely hard. And he's got this saw, and he's sawing and sawing and sawing and sawing and sawing. And he's putting in all of this effort, and he's putting in all of this time, and he's breaking his back, and he's sweating. His sweat is breaking from his brow. He's sawing this tree down. He's out of breath. He can barely do it. He can barely think. And he's trying as hard as he possibly can. And he's putting all of his effort into it, trying to cut down this tree. And this tree isn't going down. And someone else is walking through the woods, and they say to him, if you just stopped just for 5 minutes to sharpen your saw, you will be able to cut the tree down in no time. You just need to sharpen your saw. And the man says, I don't have time. I've got to cut the tree down. I haven't got time to stop. I've not got time to sharpen the saw. The tree has to come down. And obviously, what's happening is that tree isn't going anywhere, because that is a blunt saw. And no matter how much effort he puts in, no matter how hard he tries, no matter how much he burns himself out, he is making no progress because he has got a blunt saw. And all he needed to do was stop for a moment and sharpen the fucking saw. And in his mind, he didn't have time to do that, right? He didn't have time because he needed to get the result he was looking for. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had the experience where you have been working incredibly hard all day, all night, bashing away at something, and you're making very little progress, but even though you're making very little progress, you feel as though you don't have time for yourself. You don't have time to stop and reset. You don't have time to take a breath. You don't have time to rest because you need to keep going and you need to keep making this progress. But in reality, you're not making any progress. The idea of sharpening your saw comes down to looking after yourself. Now, we hear this as a fucking buzzword all the time, don't we? And it just feels empty. You need time for yourself. You need to look after yourself. You need to take a day out just for you. You need to go and run a bath and light a candle, and you need to relax a little bit. And we hear this stuff and it never really lands and it never really sinks in. Because what these individuals are doing is they have the best intentions. They're not taking it to the place where they need to take it. Because in reality, the reason as to why we need to do that for ourselves is because at the moment, without doing it, we are literally detrimental to the mission. We're detrimental to the process. We're actually taking ourselves further away from where it is we're trying to get to because we are not allowing ourselves to sharpen our saw. So what I want you to do is, instead of thinking about it as some spa day, relaxation, treat, light the candles, have the fucking bath bomb, have the glass of wine, instead of thinking about it as some little, oh yeah, it's a little treat, because really what that does is that actually just puts us in a state of guilt. And we do that stuff and then we think, oh yeah, but I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And we don't enjoy it. Let me know in the comments, have you ever actively made the decision that you're going to take some time out for yourself, and then all through the day or all through the fucking spa weekend, you're just riddled with guilt and you don't enjoy it, right? And you don't relax because you're just thinking, yeah, I know, but I should be doing that. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Let me know in the comments if you've had that experience. I definitely have had that experience, right? Now, what I want you to do moving forward is I want you to fully understand and realize that what those things should be doing is they should be sharpening your saw so that you are more effective when you get back at it. And without sharpening your saw, You're not making any fucking progress. And in fact, you're detrimental to the mission, and you're actually holding you back, and you're holding everyone else back because you're not giving yourself that time to sharpen the saw. You've got a blunt saw. There is no honor in trying to cut down that tree with a blunt saw, even with the best intentions in the world. Even though you're trying to help your family, you're trying to help other people, you're working your finger to the bone in order to provide. If you've got a blunt saw, there is no honor in that. It's not helpful. It's not impressive. It's not good. So what I want you to do is I want you to give yourself the permission to take time out for yourself, because that is you sharpening your saw. You have to sharpen your saw if you're going to be effective. You have to sharpen your saw if you're going to be helpful for yourself and your family and your loved ones. You have to take the time out to sharpen your saw. And I think when you get yourself into the headspace of thinking, this is actually the 7th habit of a highly effective person. I'm not doing this because I think I need to have a fucking bath bomb and a glass of wine. I'm not doing this because I've been told, take some time out for yourself. I'm doing this because this is genuinely going to help my family in the long run. This is genuinely going to help me create the life that I'm looking for. Because at the moment, I've got a blunt saw and I'm useful to no one with that blunt saw. And so I'm not just going to do this and then spend the whole time feeling guilty about it. I'm going to do this with intention. And that intention is to sharpen my saw. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm relaxing. That's why I'm taking a breath. That's why I'm calming down a little bit. That's why I'm having that spa weekend. That's why I'm having that glass of wine. That's why I'm having that bath. Whatever your thing is, right? Whatever your thing is. That's why I'm reading that book. That's why I'm taking the day out just to play with the kids. That's why I'm sitting out in the sun. That's why I'm going to have a barbecue. Fucking whatever. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. But what happens is we don't do that stuff with the right intention. We do it with a sense of guilt. We have to do it with the intention that it is the 7th habit of a highly effective person. And we must do it because it's the one thing that is going to allow us to sharpen our saw. So with that being said, don't do something that won't sharpen the saw, right? Just for the sake of saying, well, I was told that I need to have a bit of relaxation time. Only do things that you know are going to be able to sharpen you up and get you ready for the rest of the mission. So don't just do it because people have told you to do it. Don't just do it because I've suggested it. Don't do it for any of those reasons. Do it because you genuinely believe that that is going to sharpen your saw and put you on the right track to being able to cut those fucking trees down way quicker than what you would have done before. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Just to remind you of what they are. Habit number 1, be proactive instead of reactive. Reactive people, I'm going to be really fucking blunt with this now because it's just like, I think it's important that we do so every so often. Reactive people are no better than animals, right? They're no better than animals. Animals are purely reactive. They don't have the ability to think about their own thoughts. You do as a human being, as a Homo sapien. You can think about what you think about. Let's be proactive in the way that we think and therefore the way that we react to things. Highly effective people are proactive in their reactions, not reactive, right? Highly effective people begin with the end in mind. They make the decision as to where they're going and why that's important to them, and therefore they know what needs to be done in order to get there. Highly effective people take the first step. They don't let the whole journey hold them back. They don't look at the 10,000 miles and think, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. They just look at the first step. Highly effective people think win-win. What can I do for that person that will allow us to create a win-win scenario and collaborate instead of be in competition? Highly effective people always seek to understand first before seeking to be understood. Highly effective people learn to synergize with those around them, and they let that synergy run, and collaboration becomes stronger over time. And finally, highly effective people take the time out to sharpen their saw instead of relentlessly working themselves down to a blunt saw, thinking that being effective when they're not. I love you all. You're amazing. You are highly effective people. Please follow the habits. Please follow the 7 steps. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll deter from them. Don't beat yourself up. We can take a wrong turn, but as long as we know where we're going, we can reroute and get back on track. So if you take a few wrong turns, it's not the end of the world, but always go back to thinking, what are those 7 habits? Let me listen to that podcast again. let me follow them again and just actively do that. Okay. I love you all. You're amazing. You're incredible. You're powerful. If you are Coaching Masters members, I will see you inside of the Coaching Masters community in a few minutes' time for this week's episode of TCM TV. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep driving forward. Keep changing lives. Follow the 7 habits, and you will continue to be highly effective people. Keep coaching your way to freedom, and I'll speak to you soon.